In Book 22 of the Iliad, we have the great fight scene, you'd have to call it, death scene really, between Achilles and Hector. It begins with Achilles throwing his spear. Hector sort of ducks, and the spear flies over him. And this gives Hector a sense of jubilation. Ha! You missed, godlike Achilles. It looks like you didn't have my number after all. You were trying to scare me with big words and empty talk. And then Hector takes his javelin, he lets it fly, and it hits Achilles. But remember, Achilles has a shield that has been made by the god Hephaestus. And so it hits the shield right in the center, but it bounces right off. And Hector is momentarily confused, and he looks around for help, and then he realizes that his moment has come. This is remarkable in Homer. Hector actually previews his own death before it occurs, and he says to himself, Athena has tricked me. By giving him an illusion that he was going to be successful. Death is closing in. There's no escape. Zeus and Apollo must have chosen this long ago, even though they used to be on my side. Well, this is fate. But I will not perish without doing some great deed that future generations will remember. So this is right here, kleos. And Hector has done these great deeds. He actually has achieved this kleos. So he is remembered. We remember him to this day. And but his earthly life has, in a sense, come to its end. He charges at Hector with a murderous spear, in Homer's words, aimed at Achilles. But Achilles is able to nimbly jump to the side, pull out his own spear, and run it right through Hector. Hector falls into the dust, and then Achilles mocks Hector in a kind of reciprocal move. So you thought you could get away with it, didn't you, Hector? Killing Patroclus, ripping off his armor, my armor? You fool. Dogs and birds are going to draw out your guts while the Greeks give Patroclus burial. Now, this is interesting because Achilles now is for the first time acknowledging that Patroclus needs to be buried. He's refused to bury him. But he's apparently now willing to bury him, and we'll see later a kind of elaborate funeral conducted by Achilles for Patroclus, with massive races and chariots and displays and sacrifices and meals, and all to honor Patroclus. But what Achilles is saying here to Hector is, you're going to get none of that. And that's because I'm going to hold on to your body. I'm going to desecrate it and defile it. We'll see that he does that. And dogs and birds are going to eat it, which is to say that you're not even going to be able to make it to the underworld, which is called Hades. And Hector appeals to, you may say human decency. I beg you, Achilles, by your own soul, by your parents, don't allow dogs to mutilate my body by the Greek ships. Accept the gold and bronze ransom my father and mother will give you, and send my body back home to be burned in honor by the Trojans and their wives. So Achilles here is being appealed to on the basis of customary practice. You may say the code of Homeric warfare. And this is when Achilles states the famous and somewhat ridiculous line where he says to Hector, I wish my stomach would let me cut off your flesh in strips and eat it raw for what you've done to me. And I mentioned a few days ago, Hector has not done anything to Achilles. Hector has fought as he should fight on the Trojan side. He has killed Patroclus in an open battle. In fact, Patroclus himself said, in effect, that he wasn't killed by Hector directly. He was first struck by Apollo. He was then speared by another guy. And finally, Hector stepped in to do the final blow. So this is actually a kind of disgraceful nonsense from Achilles, where he claims that somehow Hector has done something heinous to him. It shows how uprooted Achilles is, removed, you may say, from community and detached from the normal understandings that govern warfare between two worthy adversaries. So Achilles now begins in one of the most famous scenes in the Iliad to take Hector's body, tie it to his chariot, and drag it round and round around the walls of Troy. And this is actually, this is a gruesome scene on all levels. It's just visually gruesome. Nobody would want that kind of a fate. Let's remember that while Hector's body is being dragged around Troy, his father, Priam, his mother, Hecabe, his wife, can see it. They're able to see their son and their husband, in the case of Andromache, being defiled in this way. And so this would be shocking, really, in any culture, a kind of a sign of barbarism. But when we come back, I'll tell you why it's particularly shocking in Homeric culture, and it has to do with what happens to your soul after death.